to deal with unhealthy, repetitive, habitual behavior in your life that is leading to unhealthy outcomes in your individual life, in your relationships, and in your community and your homes. And so I would first like to talk about the root of unhealthy habitual behavior. And we tend to think that the behavior itself is the root of the problem, when it's really much deeper than that. And I want to make sure you understand, I'm approaching this not from a psychological standpoint, but I really want to approach this from a spiritual standpoint and bring some spiritual dimensions into this, because it's been my experience with some 30 years of counseling people that bringing the spiritual in is the most helpful thing that brings true healing and restoration in individual people's lives. And in that vein of talking about this from a spiritual perspective, I'm going to talk a lot about identity today. And what I've discovered is the root of our unhealthy, habitual, repetitive behaviors, whether it's some form of addiction, which then becomes physical, but mostly how we get so reactive in our relationships, which becomes very destructive in our relationships and how we relate to people. The root of that really has to do what I call identity beliefs. And these are very deeply rooted beliefs about how we perceive ourselves, how we perceive our interactions with other people, and how we even perceive our thoughts that are contributing to these unhealthy behaviors in our life that are so destructive in our life. Now, the important thing to remember about identity beliefs is that many times we believe that we've created those beliefs, when in reality they're the result of unhealthy, sometimes traumatic interactions with other people and continual exposure to unhealthy situations in our life. And so many times these beliefs are imparted to us, but we actually think they are us. So, Sue, do you have any thoughts on that or questions?
Well, yeah, let's get some clarity on what you mean by repetitive, unhealthy behaviors. Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Or patterns,
Sure.
patterns of behavior. So I think it's easy to think in terms of like somebody addicted to, let's say, alcohol or drugs. But there are things that we all struggle with on a day-to-day basis where it's something in our lives where we think, why in the world have I done this again? And it's something we don't want to have in our lives. But oftentimes then that becomes the focus. How do I get rid of this behavior? And so what I think I hear you saying is that we got to back up the train to where those patterns began and how it actually is started from a belief system that relates to our identity. Is that clear?
Yeah,
Is that right?
And just to clarify, we need to be careful not to spend too much time discovering what caused them. Because sometimes that helps bring some understanding, but it doesn't really always bring change. What we really want to focus most of our time on is discovering what the beliefs are and not spending too much time in the past with those, but spending time in the now of kind of working out a system for how we can identify them and then deal with them and have some transformation taking in our mind and our heart and our soul, where we're replacing those with a healthier belief system, which of course leads to healthier outcomes. So just some examples, and you probably have some too, if you want to share them. But usually our unhealthy behaviors are more reactive behaviors. And so they get expressed with anger or manipulation or withholding or condemning or blaming in our interactions with other people. And a lot of that has to do, again, with our belief systems about whether we're valuable or not, that the same patterns are always going to occur. Sometimes we even make vows, how could anybody ever love me? And so therefore I have to manipulate for love, or I have to protect myself.
So I think some of those type of patterns are easier to identify, especially when they manifest in a specific way. Like, in my earlier years, I had a pattern of behavior of just swearing a lot, right? And so that's easy to look at that and say, okay, I want that to change. But what you're saying is, you don't spend a lot of time saying, why do I do this? Why am I like this? You're trying to get below that to what's creating the reaction in us that has now created the behavior, in this case, swearing. Is that a fair assumption?
And asking those questions like, why do I always do this?
Right.
Sometimes it actually reinforces the behavior, because those sorts of questions and trying to approach this way, it actually creates a lot of shame and guilt and self-hatred.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that shame and guilt and self-hatred is reinforcing, and it actually reinforces the behavior and creates more and more shame and hopelessness in our lives. So one of the key things here is to start separating and understanding, but also separating ourselves from, I call it the thing. And so the thing is a part of our identity. And again, it's deeper than beliefs. It's actually, I call them identity beliefs. And what has happened is we've so integrated these beliefs that we can't separate it from us. We can't separate it from ourselves. So even our destructive, condemning, shaming self-talk, we actually think those are our thoughts and that's our talk. When really it's the thing. It's the beliefs that are hidden in the corners of our soul and our mind that are masquerading as us. And so I like to use this example. It's kind of like, think of yourself as a house.
Okay.
And if someone has walked into your house and has put a very ugly, disturbing picture on the wall of your house, and every time you walk into your house and look at that picture, you are disturbed. It makes you afraid and anxious and depressed or angry or bitter, whatever emotions it's creating. If you think that you hung that picture on the wall, you're never going to take it down. And you're always going to have the same reaction to it. But if we can separate ourselves from the picture on the wall of our soul and our identity, the unhealthy one, we'll discover that we can take it down and redecorate that wall with something that creates positive things.
So my first thought when I hear this, I think, yeah, but what about if I did hang it?
Right.
So what you're saying is that, is it always that it's already been hung in us, to speak?
Yes, it's been imparted.
It's been imparted. Okay.
So
at birth, or
well, it can be
over
at
time?
birth. It can be generational things that are passed down. It can be interactions with your parents and your family. It can be interactions with people at school. There's so many variables.
Ways. Okay.
Right, and so that's why I say we don't want to spend all of our energy trying to figure out where it came from, because it's so varied. But here's the important thing.
Okay.
Unhealthy and destructive thought patterns and beliefs are almost always imparted to us.
So we just need to take that as our baseline, an
Yes.
acceptance of that.
Yes.
Okay. I've I've had this imparted to me, and now I want to separate my core identity from it.
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
I want to
Okay, I'm with him so far.
I want to separate myself from what I like to call the thing.
Okay.
All right. And again, the thing is defined as unhealthy belief systems about who I am and my value.
Okay.
And my value. And so the thing tends to speak to us like this. Boy, if anybody knew what you really are and who you really are, they would never love you. If anybody knew the things you did in secret, you would always be rejected, because you should be so ashamed of yourself. I mean, you don't even deserve anything good in your life. See, this is the self-talk that the thing speaks to us, and we actually think that's us.
Okay. And I think we can all say that we've had those thoughts.
Yes.
Right? Those, oh my gosh, if anybody really knew
Yes.
what I think in my own mind.
Yeah.
Right?
Or what I've done.
Or what I've done. Right. Or
Right.
the revenge I want to seek towards the injustice I've, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
The hatred.
The hatred, the
Whatever.
unforgiveness,
Right.
whatever. Okay.
Any
The
negative.
bitterness.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Or how worthless I am.
Yeah.
And see that then what we do is we adopt that as our thinking and our identity, and we sabotage our life. We sabotage, and we are attracted to things that reinforce the thing.
The thing.
The picture on the wall, the thing.
Okay. Okay. So far, I'm with you.
Okay. So then the question that comes up often with this is, so how do I take responsibility for my unhealthy behavior and separate myself from the thing?
Exactly.
Right? And so this is really important. Until you separate yourself from the thing, you can't really take responsibility for the behavior. And here's why. It's because the shame is so great that you can't really openly and in a healthy way own the behavior itself.
Sure, because to say it out loud would almost feel like then it's making it more
Right.
real.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
it says I am the bad thing.
And I think sometimes too there's this sense of self-protection. Like there's almost this thing we have to protect ourselves even if it's the thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that happens because we don't understand we're separate from the thing. So if we say put the thing to death, what that feels like is I'm putting myself to death. Because
Absolutely.
it becomes there's such a deception that it's so integrated in our very identity.
That I get, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's really important, this distinction between being able to say, yes, the behavior that I am exhibiting in my relationships and my life, and even towards myself, that is really unhealthy.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is we need to separate that from the core of what's creating that behavior, which is the thing. Now, as that starts to happen, as we start to realize, oh, the root cause of this is a thing that's been imparted to me, as we start to realize that, we can start to change our interaction with ourselves. We can discover, oh, I didn't put that picture on the wall. Because see, if I think I put the picture on the wall, every time somebody walks into my house, I'm ashamed because of the picture on my wall.
Sure.
Right.
And you have to keep protecting it.
Yes.
If I feel like I'm the one that put it there in the first place.
Right.
Okay.
You have to keep feeding it.
Okay.
With self-destructive
I feel like there's
thinking
like
and behaviors.
I feel like it's sort of coming together in my mind, but it still feels a little foreign to me.
Sure.
So keep going, because I feel that maybe you'll help us to get to the so we acknowledge that there is this thing that has been imparted to us, so that we can, in essence, take a step back from it.
Yes.
Okay, so then separate ourselves from it.
Create distance between it and
us,
our identity,
our value.
Right.
Okay, so then what? What do you do then?
Right. And so as we create that separation, we discover this freedom now to start actually realizing what we're really thinking and believing. And because now we've separated it. So think of the circle, the cycle that we get stuck in of shame, tension, behavior, shame, tension, behavior, shame, tension, behavior over the repetitive behavior.
Yeah.
We're locked into it.
Right.
And it's self-reinforcing.
Can we just expand on that just a little bit before you move on from that? Because so for anyone who's not familiar with this, and because you've talked about this a lot, that if you visualize a circle, and at the top of the circle there's a behavior you don't like. And so in your mind, you're saying, I'm not going to do that behavior again. I'm not. And as you go down the circle, what are you doing? Saying all the time, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do this. At the bottom of the circle, you fall. You do it. You do the very thing you don't want to do. And then coming up around the other side of the circle is, I'm terrible. I'm terrible. I'm terrible. I'm terrible. I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed. I'm not going to do this again. I'm not going to do this again. And there we go. And you're in an endless loop.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yes. And after you've made these vows and you feel this horrible shame that I'm never going to do it again, as you move back down the circle, you start to have tremendous anxiety and depression. And that actual anxiety and depression, as it builds, reinforces behavior and causes you to do it again. Right.
It's the anxiety, the depression. Okay. Yeah, that's really a key point.
And
okay.
Then the shame. So it's a self-reinforcing circle.
Okay.
And the way we break out of this, the reason we feel so much shame is we say, that's me.
Yes, absolutely. Because I did it.
Right, because I did it.
Right. But that's not the picture on the wall.
That's
right.
That's
me.
That's right.
I think I might be getting
That's
this.
right.
Okay.
That's right. And we're the house, but the picture on the wall is just something that's clawed onto our identity. It's a thing that's been imparted to us. Right?
Okay.
And as we start to make this distinction, what happens is it takes that addictive cycle or the cycle of shame and behavior, and it actually creates an off-ramp for you. And the off-ramp is, I'm not the thing. Right?
This is starting to make sense to me. I hope it is to you guys too.
Which gives us all these different options about what we can take down from our walls of our soul and our identity.
I love the off-ramp.
Yes.
It's like you're not stuck in the endless loop.
Yes. And we can redecorate it.
Okay. So what does that look like?
So redecorating is purposely identifying the pictures on the wall of yourself that are so disturbing, taking them down purposely, and replacing them with something that brings beauty and health to your life and your relationships. And so it's a changing of the very defining of who you are. And this is so important because this is everybody's story. This is everybody's story.
Yeah. I hope you guys hear that. We all are in the same struggle.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. That ends today's talk. And what's going to happen next time? What are you going to talk about next time?
So for part 2 of this discussion, we're going to transition into talking about how we can take down the old things that have been imparted to us in our identity and our spiritual houses, and how we can redecorate them with something beautiful that creates healthy outcomes in our relationships and our life.
I can't wait.
And we're going to talk about how we got to this point, why this is everybody's struggle, why every individual struggles with the same thing.
Great.
So please join us for part 2 of this discussion.
See you next time.